Hi, I'm Ali.
And I'm Becki.
We are registered dietitians that use food as medicine, and we are passionate about functional approaches to optimal wellness.
In today's video, we are going to be covering the MRT or Mediator release test that we use in clinic to distinguish food sensitivities. We'll be talking about why we use this test, who it would be appropriate for, and then we'll be actually navigating through Ali's prior results.
Yes, can't wait. I think they're back from 2014 and they're pretty serious. Yes. We picked the worst to share some severe results with you guys. Every time I've done it, I will say it's gotten better, and that's because we use this 3R approach to repairing and restoring your gut as you're doing the removal process. So we'll unpack that a little bit today as well. But I like to use the MRT test because it's the most comprehensive blood panel out there that looks at not just food sensitivity, but also the inflammatory mediator release. That's what that MRT stands for. So we're actually seeing like a GPS of your body, what's driving inflammation based on what you're consuming.
Let's talk maybe about who this would be appropriate for and who comes to us to do an MRT test in the first place.
Yes, so anyone with IBS or IBD for sure. So if we're talking about irritable bowel syndrome or inflammatory bowel disease, we want to know what's creating that lighter fluid to create that dysfunction in the body. So digestive disturbances for sure, and then within those conditions. We also look at the whole world of autoimmune disease because we know that leaky gut, which we've talked about in past videos, leaky gut can drive issues with your GALT or your gut-associated lymphatic tissue, and this can interfere with how your immune system functions, often keeping it in overdrive mode because those larger particles create an immune response.
And really anyone who's dealing with kind of unknown inflammatory issues. So it could be, joint pain and arthritis or swelling in the body, or maybe seeing a lot of fluid retention after eating and just not understanding why can be a really good candidate for MRT as well.
Yes, or skin conditions like hives or rashes that we're not able to pinpoint the cause. The MRT test could be a big influence, and that also extends to like any itis. So itis is going to be representing inflammation in the body or a condition with the itis at the end, right? So gastritis is inflammation of the gastric pouch. Arthritis is going to be inflammation of the joints. So any inflammatory condition, you're going to get some resolution by getting this GPS for your system.
Absolutely. And this is a lab that can be run, every year to kind of check in on your diet to make sure that you are seeing reduced levels of inflammatory reactions overall. So going from having a high level of reds to having just one or two to having maybe no reds and only yellows or moderate reactions by the time the third or fourth time that you've gone around.
So let's unpack a little bit about that color spectrum and what that means and how we navigate the results in clinic. So you will see on your MRT results, there's 3 different colors. Green is going to represent non-reactive, yellow is going to be a moderate reaction, and red, like Becki said, is a severe reaction. If we see in an individual's results that they have 2 or more reds, this is highly indicative of severe leaky gut. If the individual only has yellows, likely they just have some mild inflammation, and we're not going to be as aggressive with our supplement protocol in addition to the diet therapy. So we remove the yellows or mild reactions for 3 months and the reds for 6-month period of time. And we use this as an inclusive approach instead of just exclusive or avoidance. So you don't simply just avoid your yellows and reds. We actually start with a process called immunocalm, which is to literally wring out all of that inflammation in your body and really calm down the immune system. So we look at the length of your bar of the non-reactive foods, and we actually will cut these banks in half. So we're looking at, from the bar length, a scoring of 0 to 2. At 2, we start to see the moderate reaction, and at 2.5, we start to see the red reaction. So we tend to, in clinic or in your online review that we offer for those of you that want to order this panel online, we will determine an immunocalm food list, which is going to be about 50% of those non-reactive. So least of the non-reactive, and this is what you'll eat for the first 2 weeks. Then weeks 3 through 5, you're going to expand to all greens. And this is not leafy greens. This is meaning that you're going to eat the entire length of those non-reactive foods. And then at week 6, we start to strategically test outliers. Outliers are ingredients that have not been tested. So the panel now includes 170 foods and chemicals. But as you'll see, for instance, in the nuts and seeds section, it does not include hemp seed or chia seed. So if you use some of these ingredients on a daily basis while you're following Immunocalm, that could be a yellow or a red, and you might be hindering your process. So we want to ensure, again, with only inclusive data, you're eating known non-reactive compounds. And then at that halfway mark at week 6, you can introduce each food, 1 food per week or max 2 foods per week. And you're going to increase the portion per day to see if you experience a correlation of a negative health response, like maybe some joint inflammation or sleep disturbances or shifts in your bowels. And if you see that from introducing this outlier, then you'd keep that out as a reaction. And really, once you've wrung out that sponge of inflammation, you get a lot clearer data from your body of where you're at.
Yes, that first 2 weeks, I always say it's survival mode. It can be a little bit rough where you only have like chicken, eggs, and cod or something as your protein, but you really learn to work within the constructs of that and start to see outcomes right away, especially with that restrictive approach at first. And then you see much more clear response from your body if you do introduce something that your body doesn't like as much.
So let's kind of go through each of the sections, sure, Becki, and navigate my results back from 2014.
So when we're looking through the MRT results, we're going to see a chemical section, which is going to include both naturally occurring chemicals like caffeine and capsaicin found in spicy peppers, as well as chemical additives that we want to ensure that we are avoiding in the diet. It also breaks it out into beans, nuts, legumes, and seeds. We see flavor enhancers, so these would be your herbs, seasonings, and spices, fruits, vegetables, grains, seafood, and other proteins, meats and poultry, and then a miscellaneous section where you're going to find some other ingredients such as coffee or coconut or cacao powder.
So let's just, by navigating my results, and again, this was from 2014, so the panel now includes 170 foods and chemicals. This panel had 150, but I wanted to show you a little bit more exciting results. My last MRT was done in 2017, so I'm kind of past due, but I only had 1 red to wheat, which I typically avoid anyway, so I've been in good shape, but I'm probably due for a redo.
Yes, and that definitely speaks to the state of your gut over the years, and the less reactivity, the better, for sure.
Because how many reds did I have, Becki?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 reds on your first MRT.
Okay. So let's call out maybe some of the interesting areas that would be helpful for people to navigate.
Yes. So when we're looking at the chemical section, I see you had a reaction to acetaminophen or Tylenol, and that may have been something maybe at the time you weren't using, but in the past could have been using pretty regularly for menstrual cramps or headaches. And typically we think of that as an anti-inflammatory or something that's going to help manage pain, but in your case, that would be just lighter fluid.
Yes, and it's interesting to note that in the panel, it also tests for ibuprofen and also salicylic acid, which is going to be your aspirin. So you can determine of the over-the-counter options of anti-inflammatories, what's the good, better, best choice for your body. And then, like you said, in flavor enhancers, you're gonna see turmeric and herbs and seasonings and spices, so you can also be empowered with natural compounds.
Yes. And then we can see that your dairy section, you had a high volume of reactive foods, so 3 of the 7 items that were tested. And in that case, we'd want to be more aggressive with removal of dairy and also ensure that we're using a digestive enzyme anytime you are including dairy products, even if they're the ones that you were non-reactive to.
Yes, so that's important to call out because our Digestaid is going to have both the lactase to break down lactose as well as the DPP4, which breaks down the caseomorphin. So this is going to take care of that inflammatory casein in dairy as well as the lactose. But like I like to say to my clients about Digestaid is, it is an insurance policy, not a permission slip. So when you're navigating your MRT protocol, if you are in that timeline of the removal period, you still want to avoid as best as you can. But if dining out, you may use the Digestaid prior to dining out in case there was some contamination.
Sure. And then looking at your flavor enhancer section, this is often a section where we'll see reaction to very common ingredients. So like black pepper that literally is in the base of every recipe, or we might be seeing, dining out at restaurants and things like that. I see you had a reaction that was red to garlic. So that would have been a very dynamic reaction to, any kind of base of a sauce, or we can see that in any packaged products like garlic powder. So something to really watch out for.
Yes, I had to substitute a lot of leeks and onions to get through those 6 months, girl.
Yeah, I think onion came up on my first go around, so that can be definitely a big one as well.
Yes. And let's talk about this concept of superfood could be someone else's kryptonite. So let's visit my vegetable section, because I think this is really interesting when we talk about the constructs of inflammation in the diet. There are foods that can have structural components that drive inflammation, maybe like a high presence of omega-6 fatty acids, or the presence of gliadin in gluten, for instance, or lectins in particular ingredients. So the structure of a compound can drive inflammation. But again, what the MRT test is looking specific to your blood, what amount of inflammatory chemicals were released from your blood when this antigen, this food particle, hit your bloodstream. So this is where someone's superfood could be someone else's kryptonite, and we could actually see an inflammatory reaction to something like blueberries or salmon.
Yeah, so you had mushroom on here as a red, which I think is important to call out, especially because there are so many now mushroom blends that are going into coffees, or adaptogenic mushroom tinctures and things like that, as well as mushroom as a food. If you were consuming that intentionally as a food goal, maybe to get some, vegetable source of vitamin D or benefit from the beta glucans in the mushrooms, we might not know that we were reactive to it in the first place. And then cauliflower came up for you as well, which I'm sure was a heartbreak at that time.
I don't know. I think 2014 may have been a little before everything cauliflower, right? Yeah. So I know I was still doing like a low glycemic diet, but I think that was when kale was still all the rage.
Okay. So now that would be a bigger deal for somebody who's doing keto and is intentionally trying to get, cauliflower or other cruciferous veggies in the diet like 3 to 4 times a week.
And worse off, I've seen individuals that do keto have pork as a red reaction, and they might be using bacon or lard on a daily basis. So I like to say with my clients that, this is really taking a cheerleader perspective versus victim mentality, of the sense of when you see things in your MRT results that you are consuming regularly, you don't have to worry about that false positive like the other cheapo food panels out there. This is real results of what's driving inflammation. So if it's something you're eating regularly, the benefit of that is by removing that, you should get awesome clinical outcomes.
Sure. And then I see in your grain section, I want to call out corn was a reactive food, and that helps us to navigate some of the potential additives. Maybe you're already corn-free in that you're not eating corn chips or corn tortillas, but you're not watching for like dextrose or maltodextrin or something on your food labels. And I know in my MRTs in the past, soy has been there up with corn and wheat every single time. And I swear any packaged item that comes from those center aisles of the grocery store is going to have one or more of those constituents.
Most definitely. And then I think my proteins were pretty non-inflammatory, right?
You had lamb and pork on this one.
Oh, okay. What was the section that had nothing on here? Let's see. Miscellaneous was pretty squeaky clean, and seafood. Okay,
yeah.
Cool. So the way we would go through this again is to eat for 2 weeks the least of the non-reactive, then we open up to all of the green foods, then you would explore those outliers, and after the first 3 months, you would once a week introduce each yellow, 1 food per week, increasing the portion per day. So for instance, if we're talking eggs, you might have 1 egg scrambled on day 1, day 2 might have 2 eggs over easy, so you can test a difference of that protein structure, and then day 3 would have 3 to 4 eggs. So we really want to see if we see a light symptom that would have to exacerbate with the increased consumption to give us that feedback that that still is indeed an inflammatory food, or if there's no negative feedback from our body, then that 3-month removal was a successful enough window where now we can strategically reintroduce these foods without harming our system.
Yes, and that 1 a week really helps you to, if you do have a response, have that 4 days off that food for your body to kind of reset. 'Cause like we said, these sensitivities can be delayed onset. So you want that 4 days extra to wring out before you bring in the next food.
Yes. So I talked about the Digestaid. Do you want to share a little bit about the Restore Baseline Probiotic and the GI lining support?
Yeah, so we bring in the Restore Baseline Probiotic in those first couple of weeks of your MRT as well, if you're not already taking a probiotic. And one reason for doing this is that our probacteria actually help to break down the foods that we consume into smaller particles, making them easier on the gut, easier to digest, and also helping to combat some of the sterility factor that can be a driver of leaky gut in the first place. Now, if an individual had low reactive MRT and they're experiencing really dynamic GI symptoms like bloating and distension, and nothing really jives or came up, or they have all yellows on their MRT, we might actually have them go ahead and do a probiotic challenge in that first couple of weeks so that we can assess whether maybe a candida cleanse is on their agenda.
Right. Our Beat the Bloat cleanse could cover candida and really all forms of dysbiosis. So it could be another form of a gut pathogen, but we might need to plow the gut per se.
And you could be dealing with both food sensitivity and pathogen overgrowth. We see that all too often, and it's a good time that you're already kind of honed in, focused in. You could definitely overlap Beat the Bloat with MRT pretty easily.
Yeah, many clients do that within that first couple weeks, that first 6-week window.
Yeah.
All right, and then we will also provide the GI lining support. We have a bundle at alimillerrd.com called Digestive Basics, and it includes all 3 of these supplements. The GI lining support has L-glutamine, DGL, which is diglycerized licorice root, and aloe. So the DGL and the aloe create a mucilaginous, oopy-goopy delivery of the L-glutamine, and L-glutamine is a building block and a fuel source for our enterocytes, or our gut cells. It literally helps to repair all of the villi that's going to create those nice tight junctions. So we removed the lighter fluid, we restored our optimal digestive function, and now we're repairing the gut lining so that we can be resilient, see less reactivity, and start to improve whole body health.
Then we would bring in that GI lining for you for sure, because you had so many reds, or really any individual with 2+ reds, or a high level of yellows and high level of reactivity. We'd bring that in from the get-go at 1 scoop at bed, and then in that week 5, right before you start testing outliers or untested items, you'd up that to 2 scoops at bed just to give yourself a little bit of extra support.
Yes, definitely insurance policy in that sense too, because if you consume something and you get feedback that it is an inflammatory response, you still don't want to insult the gut during the recovery process.
Exactly.
Awesome. So I hope that this helped you guys to understand how we use the MRT results in our clinic at Naturally Nourished. And also note, there's a link below. If you're interested in this blood panel, you can order it through our clinical website, and you will get a customized lab review email from either Becki or myself to support your navigation of your results. We hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, that you will share it with a friend that you feel might benefit from the information we've provided. Also, be sure to subscribe, because every Thursday we'll be sharing with you food as medicine and functional approaches to optimize your health.
In today's video,
Mert.
Mert.
How do you spell MRT?